Welcome to episode 50 of the PoddyC. This week, classic launches for the third time, sort of. Foggers, Dorki, how is Hardcore Classic, the re-release, treating you?
Wait, are you playing it?
Oh, of course he's playing it.
I'm playing it right now. It just came out 2 hours ago as we're recording this.
They're, dude, some streamers, they're cosplaying as, do you remember the South Park episode?
Yeah.
Make Love Not Warcraft? Yeah, it's
they're
sick.
cosplaying the Warcraft.
They've got
guy?
like a full replica of Cartman's basement with like all four of them dressed up as the different
Wait,
South Park
where?
people. It's going crazy. Let me see if I can find... Hang on.
He's
yeah,
shooter right now. He actually was the first one dead. It's actually crazy. He died at level 6.
Died already? No way.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think that's a good move. Like, if you're trying to stand out and make great content, like, why do people watch hardcore? They watch to watch you die. So, like, being the first to die at a comically low level is not the worst idea.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. There's been a lot of discourse lately because did you guys see like what they're changing exactly? There's a bunch of non-classic stuff being added to classic.
Wait, sorry, before you go in there, is he playing on a CRT?
I think so, yeah. Or
what?
Yeah, that
He is. Or no, it has to be like a new monitor, but like it looks like it looks like they probably hired someone to make this room.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So like
sure
I'm thinking
100%.
that's because I don't know, because look at oh no, because the other one they did have like a good monitor for it back then, so it didn't matter. But they actually like, dude, that's so smart. That's such a good idea.
Yeah,
I love when people
crazy
are creative.
content.
Yeah, that's sweet. Sorry to all
Yeah.
the listeners that are not watchers on YouTube that cannot see what we're talking about, but it is very well done.
Yeah, Spotify L, Apple Music Podcast L, YouTube W.
Yep, YouTube W as always.
What happens.
Yeah.
So Dorki, so you're doing it right now. What is the goal? What are you guys trying to do?
Are you talking about like of OnlyFangs or just like
Yeah,
hardcore in
yeah.
general?
Oh, well, hardcore
so
in general, I assume, is just to go to the end and not die, or do as much content as you can before dying.
Yeah,
But like,
well,
what's the OnlyFangs thing?
Not fully. So I would say like starting off with hardcore specifically. I do think hardcore, generally speaking, is more about the journey. Like it really lets you get that classic experience that you couldn't. Well, more like the vanilla experience that some people couldn't capture back in 2019. Because, you know, like 2019, modern gaming, everyone's got the entire game figured out. They're looking up guides, figuring out how to like speed level, doing all these things that aren't true to what the game felt like back in vanilla. But what hardcore does is it kind of stops you from being able to do all that meta-driven stuff. You're not able to just speed through the entire game. You got to actually like pace yourself. There's a lot of risk involved. And I think that's like the biggest appeal of hardcore by far. But for OnlyFangs specifically, they're trying to get a lot of these players who have never played WoW before. There's like 400 streamers or so signed up. Like I'm looking at the OnlyFangs Discord right now, and there are so many people signed up. There's like Tim the Tatman, Grubby from Warcraft 3, Tyler 1 from League of Legends. All these big names, and they've never played WoW before, like not once. So OnlyFangs is kind of trying to just introduce all these people and get them all together, kind of like the GTA RP scene. In fact, a lot of the GTA RP people are playing this, and there's like a pretty dedicated RP section.
Yeah, I heard there was like they're adding like prox chat, which I think like prox chat and RPing can definitely add a fun layer on top of what this already was. But what's the end? Okay, so the main goal is to get a bunch of people interested in WoW, and also it seems like there's actually like kind of a content drought across most games and streaming, not just like a WoW mid-season, late season thing. To where like a lot of people are like, okay, I could use some like content, maybe like get into something. So like that seems big goal. What's the end goal? Like, are they trying to raid like the people who make it to max level? Is there a finishing point?
Yeah, they're trying to clear Nax, which I mean is not going to be possible. I swear it's going to be. That's
Wasn't
way
there a
too
hardcore
big
team
of a
that did
task.
that? But I guess
There was, but those are classic players,
yeah,
right? They're
those are
not
like
like streamers.
Yeah, those are sweats. That's what we
I
call them.
see.
Where they're trying to have like a journey for the more casual players, I guess you can call them, because, you know, like a lot of these guys have never played before. And it's actually kind of interesting, the rules they said. There's guild self-found, which means we're not allowed to trade outside of our guild, and we're only able to party amongst other OnlyFang members. Aside from that,
Okay.
the sweats
cool.
also have like some limitations. I don't remember what exactly were the rules, but there's like some limitations to make it a little bit harder for the sweats, and the non-sweats, they have a little bit more leeway. I believe the non-sweats also get some loot prio, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, so like the more you're coming from WoW, the more nerfed you're getting with like some extra stipulations.
Wait, so are you getting nerfed at all, even though you're not from
No,
Classic?
I'm not a sweat. Yeah, no, I'm not a sweat.
Yeah. I just could see them seeing that you. I mean, you are exactly what would be described as a sweat in retail WoW. Just not a one in Classic. Yeah.
Yeah, but on Classic, I'm completely clueless. I'm basically
That's cool. This reminds me of like Path of Exile private leagues where you kind of you get a bunch of your friends together, or like they do it. There are a couple like event ones where you'll have like, it's not playing by yourself, but it's also not playing with a huge anonymous community. It's like a mid ground between the two. That's although this one obviously just has a bunch of huge streamers too, which is a cool added wrinkle to it. Speaking of Path of Exile, dude, Path of Exile 2 trailer came out today. I'm just gonna
not even just the trailer, like
like an hour and a half of
the full package,
like leaking what's gonna be in it. Full.
This is the game, yeah.
Dude, this December I'm very likely gonna despawn for. It's gonna line up nicely with Christmas anyways, but I'll be doing it too. There's gonna be some PoddyCs where there's gonna be suspicious flashing lights on my camera perspective.
Oh, interesting.
Matt's gonna get awful mad at me for being distracted mid episode.
I won't get mad.
You play hardcore. What do you do on PoE?
No, I don't like playing hardcore because I like play while I'm doing other stuff or like watching things. But it's I love Path of Exile. I love all ARPGs actually. I've been really liking D4 over the past few.
Dude, it's so interesting. I know you're like a reasonable person, and it's interesting to say that. I think, was this in the bonus episode where I said, and this is going to make sense. This is going to sound super random, but like how I've thought about maybe trying to watch anime in the past, but the reason I haven't is because I've seen the takes of people that have anime avatars, and it's a risk that I don't want that to happen to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of feel that way with PoE.
Yeah.
Like the people in games that really frustrate me when like reading their takes online, or pretty much anyone like really liking their game but shitting on other games. So like if you're a WoW player and you're just like constantly thinking about how much you hate Final Fantasy and how much better your game is than Final Fantasy, I would not want to associate with you ever. I think that's like the weirdest behavior of all time. Same thing with other people playing MMOs. I think like they're often referred to as like MMO tribalists or just game tribalists. Like it's not important that their game is good. That's important, but it's also important that everyone else knows that every other game in their genre is bad. And that entire thing makes me so mad. So when I see PoE players, they're maybe the single most insufferable group of people that do that. They're like, they can't just say PoE good. They have to point out that other ARPGs are specifically bad. And I find that insufferable. So I find it hard to get into PoE because I don't want that to happen to me. But you seem reasonable. Can you describe that? Like, what's it like? Do you feel those urges sometimes to point out that every other game is actually bad?
I don't feel those urges. I mean, when D4 first came out, I certainly liked it less because I knew what a fun ARPG could be for me. And like the first 3 seasons of D4 were so disappointing for me for that reason, where it's like, I know the happy chemicals my brain can make from an ARPG, and D4 like was just missing something that stopped it from doing that. But I will say, yeah, like it's, watching the PoE 2 release stream or trailer stream earlier today, a lot of the chat was like, "Oh, D4 dead forever," haha, D4.
Yeah, like
so
that
bad.
Exactly.
Which is just like
that's insane. That's actually insane to me, and it
Yeah.
makes me want to completely disconnect from that game.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, there's people. I think that D4 being bad, like, became an especially big meme in the PoE community, and it's one of those things, sort of like Moonkin being bad, where it's like, it's funny because
It's a meme.
well,
Yeah, it's a meme
it's
to
like
a certain
half
point,
meme, right? And then there are people who are taking it too far that it's not funny, and then there are people who are like, well, screw those people. They shouldn't stop me from being able to make a funny meme, which I do agree with, but
Yeah.
it's tough.
that makes sense.
So, I definitely understand. I would say you're probably not alone. You're probably one of many people who are turned off from communities that are doing that. And I think people within those communities often don't realize that they're turning off potential players of their games or watchers of their show or whatever.
Dude, Dorki, I don't know, we should... Dorki and I came up with a list of game communities that are like that the other night. We were in Discord.
Let's read it out. Let's
I'm trying to read it out. Wait, I don't know if I can find it. Where was it?
It's like...
there it is. Well,
yeah.
Well, maybe Dorky doesn't want to do that one in lieu of his current
oh, what could it possibly be?
Current gameplay. That's all good. No reason there.
My current prospects.
Just a few other games that have similar vibes. Okay, so what do we got going on in WoW nowadays? This is like the part of the season, right, where it's kind of been the part of the season where there's not a lot. I know there's like still MDI stuff. You casted Chinese MDI qualifiers. How was that?
Dude, it's actually, I think, the most fun casting so far. So like for anybody who hasn't been following the MDI, we had the 2 global group weekends, and then simultaneously with one of those weekends, the Chinese server played their like qualifier as well. And then we rebroadcast that. But because we were rebroadcasting it, we just had the VODs. So we didn't have to do any waiting between matches. We just got to go game. Just cast for like 6 hours straight, come back the next day, cast for 5 hours straight. It's a banger. I don't know, like the average quality of gameplay, I would say, is a little bit lower across, especially their first seeded team is like definitely pretty good. All the others would probably lose to like most of the teams.
Hold on.
In
Be
groups A and B.
completely honest. I heard the teams are like basically a complete joke.
So yeah, the first seeded team there, I think, is probably like best case maybe getting 4th at global finals, something like that. Like they definitely look to cut below Mandatory, Perplexed, Holy Moly, who are 3 teams that look really good. And they could maybe be 4th place above all the other teams if they have a good weekend. I think higher than that would be really surprising out of them. And then all the other teams in the Chinese bracket, like teams 2 through 8, they all could take games off each other, because just like you'd go into Grim Batol and there's like 20 deaths, Necrotic Wake 25 deaths. There were some absolute disaster piece runs, which are always the best kind of runs to watch.
Yeah.
For depending on what you're looking for from MDI. Sometimes it's nice to have the really clean, fast runs, but sometimes, especially if you're not waiting long between games, which of course we weren't because we were just watching the VOD, we were just going back to back between these, like, I mean, every Grim Batol, dude, every single Grim Batol was just absolute, like, it was like one team has 4 wipes, one team has 2 wipes.
I feel like that's actually what you want if you don't have an extremely competitive, both the teams are good, killing bosses at the same time. Like, the second best thing to that is 2 groups also being kind of neck and neck, but for the total opposite reason. I feel like that beats almost any other game. We
also saw a tremendous amount of like one of the teams that qualified literally just plays Fire Mage in every dungeon, because then that's the only team to have ever played Fire Mage in any of the MDI weekends, and they just played in every dungeon because that's their comp. They've just literally played one comp, but they play it everywhere, and it's got a Fire Mage in it, and it's like that is Pogger's viewer experience.
Oh yeah, if you could be any team for the viewers, you wanted the most viewers to root for you, it would be being the team that tries to do something different. There's nothing the MDI viewer hates than just running the same comp over and over again, which is understandable.
That was us, actually. That's how my team, when we first competed in our MDI back in Season 2 of Shadowlands, we had a lot of people cheering on for us because we were those guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can just see it in chat all the time. Like, what is the biggest complaint? It's not even close. It is like, oh, ZZZ, same classes every map kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
dude. What if you were able to, hold on, real quick quote? What if you were able to just like lock in your class that you're playing for MDI for next season, and then everyone has to stick with that class? Like it's like, you know, like imagine if like Fire was competing and he had to play Mage only, and then like, or like if like Goop signed up, right? And he had to. Dude,
I
play
like
Boom
that.
Kid.
I actually
Wouldn't
think
that
that's
be, like,
so
cool?
sick. I think people would complain that like, oh well, like whenever we made the choices, like if they do any tuning, that would be super controversial. Like the point you have to make the choice, you just have to guess at kind of like what's good and what makes the most sense, and then you'd maybe see like a meta of what the same people are locking in. But then like if you're locking it in like preseason, a lot of stuff kind of could change. Your perspective definitely changes from the beginning of the season to when the MDI starts. But seeing teams lock in different stuff would be, I mean, that's all you want, right? Like you just want what the MDI is right now. And you would just, if you could change anything, it would just be implementing some way to have some variety of team comp. No matter how you do it, right? Like there was that thing that I suggested a while ago to them, like that version where you like have to, I don't even want to. It's such a long description, but like basically,
it's like you have $15 buy your team comp.
Buy your team, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there'd be different ones maybe for different things. But then I think there would even be a meta within how you spend your points there. So like there's really hard ways to do it. But yeah, at the risk of not talking about the MDI for a long time. I know our viewers are not huge fans of the MDI. I personally haven't watched it at all this season. But it's not surprising to me. You said like the teams there. Dorki, like you thought they were kind of a joke. They weren't really good. That's not surprising to me at all. They actually used to be somewhat competitive, their top teams, but they also lost their game for I think like a year, maybe more. Was it 2 years? Like they
it's like a year and a half, yeah.
And maybe some of those players went to a different region and then stayed there, or maybe came back. But it would certainly fragment the development of like talent in that region 100%. Right? Even China has like I actually wonder how this is going to happen in the future. Do you guys know China currently has a law? It was like introduced in 2019, and I think they actually heightened it during the pandemic, where like if you can't play games as a kid in China for more than like 1 hour a day or something, and now it's only on weekends and holidays.
I feel like we talked about this last.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Was it bonus epi? Oh, and then it was bonus. It was bonus epi, and then we looked up that it like got more extreme, and it would and you mentioned Dratnos that it would probably affect the generations coming more than anything.
Yeah,
but
there would be a delay on when it would actually you'd see it in esports performance.
Yeah, exactly. But like I kind of wanted to use that as an example. Like it's not exactly happening like the law, but if you just remove WoW for a few years, I mean, you would definitely see it's only in a specific region. There's no real scenario where the quality doesn't go down. That's going to happen.
So the thing is, China has a lot of the top Raider IO runs. I think they're going to have some very good TGP teams, but yeah, the MDI teams definitely are like a lot worse than the MDI teams of like the top three over in the Western region, at least, are I think on a different level. But it's weird because you don't really do MDI ever on live, so you have to like
it is a specific skill set.
You have to be doing MDI to be getting good at it, right? Whereas if you're just playing keys like normal, you're kind of getting good at TGP.
I think general dungeon skill level transfers a lot from doing it, but it's definitely TGP. You are practicing TGP every single time you queue up a live key, and it's exactly what it is. It's not 80% of what it is. It's like exactly what you're doing. And you're doing a lot of the same pulls too. Like very specific pulls require you doing the same thing, repetition, doing the same thing over and over again. In TGP, you've done that. In MDI, you're doing pulls, whether it be at a lower difficulty or not, you're doing pulls that you've actually never done before on any key level, because why would you unless you were doing the MDI? So there's like a lot of extra learning.
Yeah, when you were saying how like they might not have the talents that they would be able to cultivate over those like periods of downtime, I would say no, normally that's true, but China, they've been keeping up. They've been blasting. Primarily on
live
keys.
You mean?
Yeah, on live keys, and I mean like even in Raid, those guys, Z-Box and like whoever else.
A couple of those teams I would describe as people who were doing content that was too hard for them and just raiding too much. Like when you're seeing people kill bosses in 1,000 pulls, that is like you are doing something you should not be doing, right?
But that's only one of the teams, right? Like,
that's only it's two of the teams. There was one of the teams that was really good. It was the team. Right? Yeah, it's Is it Hot Pot Hero?
Yeah,
Whoa.
Hot Pot Hero,
yeah. I don't know exactly what their name is, but it's really hard to tell with them specifically because so one, they did great, but they also had 2 eye levels more than the top couple teams than Method, Echo, or us. And that's insane. And I don't know how much that cut down their time. But even with the 2 eye levels, like for example, if you gave 2 eye levels to those other 2 teams, they wouldn't have been anywhere close to them. Like they were way better than them. But as far as like how good, it's really hard to tell because 2 eye levels is, I mean, we would have killed bosses actually so much faster with 2 more eye levels, like days faster. So, yeah, that is that. I guess you're right. Or if you look at live keys and you look at raid, it's not like they really took a step back, because in raid you could argue they didn't really take, like, they've always had one guild that was like pretty good, you know, not like enough to like really compete, but they're like, oh, there's something there, and that's kind of still true. Maybe even you could argue that was Hot Pot Hero the best performance of a Chinese guild in
I think so.
a long time. Certainly a long time, not ever. There's been a Chinese guild got world first back in Dragon Soul, I think. Kin Raiders, right?
Stars, right? Was no, Stars was Ulduar. That was Yogg.
Stars Ulduar, I think in Dragon Soul, I think the Kin Raiders got one in Dragon Soul, but more recent. Both really cool, but yeah, like not in a very long time without a top finish. You're right, Dorky.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the like hype about every tier is like, oh, is this the tier that Skyline goes for it or whatever gets it? But yeah, this I think was the actual best, like closest they've been. Where it's starting to end the conversation of like, man, if they didn't start on Thursday in particular, maybe third would have even been on the, or second would have been on the table.
Yeah, that is the global release being that desynced is a big problem for them. That would be, because like even if they were like as good, you'd just be so behind.
Yeah, you basically could like only win in tiers where bosses die on Mondays.
Yeah, exactly. Like basically the top couple guilds kill it after the reset, but you killed it on the last day of your reset. So you killed it a day and a half later than we did or Echo did, but you were the only people to do it in like the previous week's gear. That would definitely bring up a lot of conversations, in my opinion. Like that's the only scenario I could see them, with the circumstances they've been given, a way to outperform the top people. But even then, when you're doing it that like at the end of your reset, you're doing it with still having the information of the other people for 2 more days in the reset, right? So like, and that's obviously worth a ton. But I mean, that would be super impressive, and that would start a ton of conversations. I don't know how many would result in Blizzard actually doing something about the global release, because I feel like at this point, if it hasn't been done, it won't, which is sad. But I just don't think it'll ever happen.
My perspective is that global release is going to change only if Blizzard has to do it. Like, if for some reason they are convinced that like, if we don't do this, we're going to lose the free advertising of the Race to World First, because it would involve a lot of extra like logistics from their end to set it up. And as it stands right now, we have a Race to World First with like 4 EU wins and 4 NA wins of the last 8. Like, that's a great balanced race from their end. They're happy with it. No need to touch what ain't broken, right? But then if, for instance, there was a situation where it was like there was a tier where it's like, oh, clearly the global release was the breaker here and the deciding factor, and then everybody's like, man, okay, this is stupid, we're not going to watch the race next year. I think that could be the kind of thing that would maybe instill some panic in them and make them change it. But otherwise, I just don't see them like voluntarily spending a lot of money to not, like when the Race to World First is already.
I don't think it's about spending a lot of money. It's I think they're, you know, on this podcast we always talk about like the silent majority, the most WoW players that just play the game almost like a single player game, and they never log on Twitter or Twitch or anything like that. Maybe some of you guys listen to this podcast, and that's about as far as you go with like interacting with like the WoW community outside of the way you play it on your own. And those group of people could be, Blizzard has always given the argument is they don't want to hurt those people. Like if you're a European raider, for example, and your raid is at like 6 or 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, like it or whatever, like it always has been. But now there's just a reset in the middle of thousands, tens of thousands of people's raid time. Like that's something they don't want to have happen. Like right now, no matter where you play, the reset just kind of happens overnight. You wake up and you play. They don't want to mess that up for the race. But you're right. I think they might consider doing it if they were going to lose the race as a product. I think maybe they'd do it.
I think there are ways that you could fix the global release without griefing normie guilds, but they would require some like combination of innovation, experimentation, and also you would need, instead of being able to do your maintenances separately, you would need more capacity to be able to, because like, you know how the EU maintenance is always 20 minutes and the NA maintenance is always like 4 hours. It's because they like learn what happened from the NA maintenance, right? And they
copy paste.
You would lose that ability if you wanted to try and do it all simultaneously. So I don't know if they wanted like a good robust solution that didn't grief normal guilds, which I agree. I think that's non-negotiable for them. Even if they they'd rather lose the race probably than grief everybody else's raid time in the middle of their raid in a region. But if you wanted to do both, you'd then have to do some creative solution or spend some money or something like that. And I just don't see them. I don't see there being any pressure on Blizzard to do that right now, except for a lot of the Race to World First players saying they wish it was like that. But like, yeah, Blizzard's like, okay, that doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, I've even stopped asking about it in interviews. I actually get European fans who like they're that kind of EU fan where they're like, yeah, so I get why you're not asking them about global release. It's like, dude, like I think they've probably answered it and given the same answer on interviews. It's been at least 5 times, but it might be more. And it's every single time the look on their face is like, dude, like we've just keep telling you the same thing. Like it's just a waste of time to do that. Even though it would be great for everybody. But actually I interviewed them the other day. For the first time I think ever when interviewing them, I haven't talked to a like game director, a associate game director. I specifically wanted to speak to someone who works a little bit closer to their craft, like what they're doing, like their specific thing. And hey, perfect thing, I got raid designers, which is the thing I care about more than anything else. And I think it was my favorite interview I've done. Not to plug the YouTube, but I mean it's on the YouTube channel if you want to check it out or listen to it. But it's
I just read the Wowhead summary. That's because the Wowhead summary existed. I don't actually watch any of your content.
That is good. Yeah. I'll make sure to tweet about that.
That's good.
Yeah, they I guess like nothing really got announced other than like cool insights into how their job works, which is really all I wanted from it. But they did announce a new Swirly is coming next season to PvE of all kinds, so Mythic Plus and raids.
That was
what could it mean?
Actually, yeah.
What does that mean?
Swirly?
Well, I mean, they were specifically speaking of it in terms of visual clarity. It was on a question about visual clarity, and they said, "Oh yeah, I guess something to like early announce for next season. We're experimenting with a few different swirlies that make it more obvious where they begin and end."
Okay, so it's like because like they added the soak swirly where it's like got the thing above it until somebody walks in, and this isn't like a new functionality swirly like that. This is like a
think Denathrius circles
so that it's visible.
Yeah, like think about, I mean, any like swirly that's about to hit the ground, it has the same graphic and the same way it works. They're all the same. They're just updating that, which I don't know, it could be good or bad, but if the result of it, and they really care about art, it probably has to look good, right? But if the result of it is that it is not super unclear whether you are in or out, everyone who's listening to this podcast, no matter how casual you have played, have gotten hit by a swirly that you were positive you were out of, and then you're like, there's no way. And that's not, sometimes you're wrong and you were actually in it, but also sometimes the animation is just simply smaller than the damage or bigger, whatever. Like that happens all the time. And clearing that up for gameplay focused people is honestly like as good as in like introducing the ping system, for example. Like I think it's that level of like impactful. Be super good.
Yeah, they already have certain swirlies that got redesigned to be like that in M+ right now. Some examples would be like Mist of Tierra Scythe, the Acid Gullet. It used to just be one of those like generic swirlies without an outline, but now it has a hard defined outline. In fact, there's been a lot of discourse about this on Twitter a bit ago. I remember THD made a tweet talking about how he wishes the swirlies were more like examples he used were from Lost Ark, where there's like, just a clear outline on the circles and you know exactly where the safe spot is. Because I find that to be really frustrating as well as a more gameplay focused kind of guy. There were a lot of arguments against it. I saw like Annie Fuchsia tweeting about like how like she prefers how WoW does it because it's like distinct and it looks nice. But I kind of wish it was at least an option. I wish it was like, all right, you could have both. 2 different modes, or maybe even like 3 different modes. They can have like literally pure aesthetics, just like whatever the artist intends and how they envision it. And then there can be like a complete gameplay one where like literally every single swirly looks exactly the same and every cone looks like exactly the same. And maybe you can have like a middle ground too, where it's just, it keeps the artistic intentions, but it has outlines at least.
I don't think
And
Blizzard ever wants to like give us those kind of options though, because like
everyone will do it, and then
we'll do the strongest
Well, I
option,
mean,
and
like,
then the
why
game
is
will
that a
look less
problem,
good,
though?
right?
That's a good
they don't
point.
want the game.
If,
I
if
understand
every
how, like,
if everyone
maybe
will
people
do
never
it,
do
why
it,
would that be a
not?
problem? I remember
Yeah.
this exact same conversation. Now, this is not a good example because this is something they should have done, but they actually removed the mini map from like D4, if you remember, like the overlay map, which is something that they invented with D2 and is like core to every ARPG. But the reason why is like more of an MMO. They wanted you to like actually look and interact with the map. Now that was a bad decision, but when they were asked about it in an interview, they were like why not even just have it as an option was the question. And they're like, well, like when we see someone playing D4, we have a vision of like what we want you to see, right? And so I can imagine a WoW designer and art. Again, we've talked so much about how much they care about how things look. I mean, the specific question this was in answering to was, hey, sometimes you have green bosses with green abilities in a green room, and like that's really hard to see shit. This is a direct response to that. Like if they had the option and they think a lot of people would just be like, oh, well, it's suboptimal to not have the telegraph mode on, so like you just have to do that. They don't want people seeing WoW and just seeing like a bunch of meaningless telegraphs that are not based on the art of the thing that they created, which is a decision. Like as a gameplay, we're all gameplay people, right? Would be great to have it just pure gameplay. Like I guess you mentioned Lost Ark, but even like Final Fantasy telegraphs and
Wildstar.
Yeah, Wildstar was entirely based on telegraphs, right? But like there's also like I see an artistic reason of not wanting that. Annie's point probably represents I imagine I'm not going to make up a majority. I have no idea, but I think there's a lot of people that care about that.
Yeah, I remember that tweet specifically. There were definitely a lot of WoW players who did not like the idea of hard outlines.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think their goal is both, right? Like their goal, if they could have it perfect, it would be this looks like a sick boss mechanic that would come, this big shadow circle that would come from this big shadow void lord guy is also obvious where to see. I think that is where they want to do it, and they would not want to resort to having none of that matter and just take the easy way out of making it a telegraph. And I don't know, I kind of respect that.
Exactly. Like I think a great compromise is if they actually come up with a cool new, like if they just have the art team come up with a good new Swirly that looks good and is clear, and then like everybody's happy. So hopefully that's what this is. The other thing from that interview that again, I didn't actually watch it, but I read the Wowhead summary. It said they said that they started with heroic when they were designing bosses. Is that true, or is that another common Wowhead fake news L?
Nope, it was I'm glad you brought that up because I had like 10 more questions, and then they usually let me talk for a little longer, but this time they were like at 30 minutes. They were like, you better be done. And they were like, you have one more question. And I picked that one, which was a bit later out of the 10, to ask them, when you design a boss, do you start from the bottom up or the top down, like Mythic first or LFR first? And I did not expect the answer to be heroic, but I found that fascinating and also to make a lot of sense.
Like once I read that, it like all locked into me, because you just look at every boss fight and it's like, yeah, like the mythic mechanics feel extra.
Yeah, absolutely.
The heroic, like normal, feels like something has been taken away. Even
yeah, and LFR is like
sense.
They took away multiple things, which also we found out recently that LFR is like the most popular game mode by far, which is also not surprising, and why
that's not surprising.
And
that's also, I feel like we find that out every year, and people
are still just like, I've never really understood the LFR has to be deleted take. It just has never made any. I've never heard a not completely nonsense argument about that, but yeah, if you look at it, heroic does seem like the best design for bosses, and I think that's why a lot of people, maybe there's some other reasons to that, find AOTC as one of the natural stopping points of a season. Is like heroic bosses are probably the best design, because there are mythic bosses where the mythic version of the boss makes the boss 100%. Those exist, but then there are bosses where it's like, this is a harder difficulty, we had to add something, but it seemed like they were reaching for the thing they were going to add, for the sake of just adding difficulty. And heroic is just like, dude, it's like some heroic end bosses are like maybe as close to peak boss design you can have in any game, because hard doesn't necessarily equal better. Like heroic Denathrius, heroic Razageth, a bad mythic fight, but like heroic Razageth was an incredible heroic fight, incredibly good. Like
heroic Silken Court.
Yeah, heroic Silken Court. Silken Court is definitely
we talked about this before. While you were doing the Race to War First, Max, like when we were doing the Me and Dranos episode, I was saying how this heroic raid is actually one of my favorite heroic raids. It was actually
it does really well.
Yeah, Yeah, Silken Cord I think is a good example of one where it's like the mythic mechanic is definitely kind of stapled on top, right? Of a coherent fight.
Okay, I know Dratnos keeps doing the like, I haven't watched it, I watched the Wowhead summary. But you actually should watch it, not even trying to get a +1, because the thing that struck me the most from that interview is actually the same feeling that I got when I went to Blizzard, and I've told you guys that story about how I met that guy met a few of them that were just so passionate, they just fucking love this shit, right? That is the vibe that came through in that interview. You listen to 2 raid designers that fucking love this shit. They would be someone like me or someone who just absolutely loves raid design if they weren't actually designing raids. There's someone doing what they love doing, and listening to them talk about the bosses that they've worked on and why they made decisions they made. They gave so many anecdotes about specific mechanics that existed and then they removed them and then why, and specific mechanic lineups that made sense and they removed or changed the timing of different things. And the passion, if you're someone like me who likes listening to YouTube videos and it's just like someone talking about ancient Greece for like 30 minutes, but they really fucking know what they're talking about. You don't care about ancient Greece, but you're listening to someone talk about something they're super passionate about. Maybe some of you guys get that from this podcast, hopefully. That same feeling is something that I garnered from that interview. It was like infectious how much they cared about what they did. And that was like even in the Mythic answer, you were talking about like how they designed fights, heroic versus Mythic. He said that a lot of times they make bosses on heroic and then they realize they accidentally created a Mythic fight. They called it accidental mythicking. And just the way they were kind of talking about that, I don't know, it just gave you a lot of insight into how they do their jobs and how much they like doing their jobs. It was really fun. Also, give me a +1. That too.
All right, you sold me on it.
Yeah,
I'll watch it,
I'm
but I
just
am
gonna-
turning my
Yeah, make sure you guys
on.
give me the report. Make sure you give me the report.
I'm just reading the Wowhead.
Okay. Dorky, how much are you playing retail right now? Is it 0 with OnlyFangs?
Well, before today, I was actually playing a ton. We actually almost got World First 19 last night, but
What
very
happened?
Unfortunate.
Who bricked the
It
case?
was just
no.
like
Oh,
me.
no.
That sucks.
There are a number of reasons. Like if we had to place
Whose
one
fault was it?
major blame, I guess like Pete, Growl definitely.
Oh, that's weird. That's actually what happened.
That's crazy
in that
because I
Siege
was
of
Okay, so
drafting.
it was
yeah,
it was
things
the
are
biggest
crazy,
mistake
yeah.
for sure. I mean, it was really unfortunate. Like he was supposed to MC the stag shell. It was just like a patrol, like a mob that's like out there and like grip it over to us, but the mob just moved really weirdly and it just like proxied a bunch of mobs, which caused him to die, and then I got social aggro too from having Starfall up. So I died too.
This is a total bit. I like how he's fully describing the mistake. Like
Yeah. So okay. So let me finish
classic
the
bench
situation.
behavior, by the way, doing stuff like this.
Yeah, so I lost my 30 stack Spymaster, and then I had to run back. They were finishing up the pole, and I was just like rezzing him.
Embarrassing.
And yeah, we missed the key by
I would
8
have loved to have
seconds.
hate watched that. You need to like ping us in the channel when you're doing something of that importance, so we can gather to hate on
Yeah, it
you.
was an insane key. Yeah, we
Or
were
root
about
for
to
you.
get big IO that day. But I think that is the end of my group's pushing journey for this season.
The entire
Oh,
season,
no.
really. Like even if OnlyFangs slows down in a month and you think you're done, like you're not. Why would you be done? Actually, if you're
Well, I
having
think
so much fun,
more specifically, Growl is done because like he's like really into hardcore, right? And like he's probably
Yeah.
gonna play until season 2.
I remember the
so
last
like-
time that hardcore, maybe the first time hardcore came out, he like legit quit retail. Like people were like,
Oh, yeah.
is he going to ever play retail again? He was so into it.
He quit for like 2 seasons, I believe. He was playing for a long.
Yeah, it was
time.
insane.
Yeah, and even when Classic Original came out in 2019, that was the first time he quit, and I actually, well, this was before we started streaming, right? He quit to play Classic, and I was the replacement healer. I was healing for our group at the time. That's
Wow.
a short little lore. Yeah.
Wait, that's
God,
how
you-
you got your start in streaming?
No. That's not how I got my start in streaming, but
Oh, okay.
It was before you guys had started streaming.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was like
this is
before,
during the
before we cared
unstreamed
about
BFA.
streaming.
Yeah, I remember because you guys like started streaming during late BFA, like season 4, and
Basically,
Classic the
yep.
first time came out during Ajara farm.
Yep.
Or Ajara, the end of Ajara Prague in my guild's case, and our warrior didn't log in because he was playing Classic the day it came out. We were like 10% on the boss, and we didn't have a battle shout. Ooh.
That's not a
Did
good
I
look.
did I tell you guys that story about the guy that made us not raid back in Siege of Orgrimmar?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it's not a super long story, but we were about to get like world 7th, I think, which was our best rank ever. We were like any pull from killing Garage, and it was a Thursday, and we were a Sunday through Thursday guild. That was our listed raid times. But then we were gonna raid Friday because, like, hey guys, we can do this, but we're gonna put it up to a vote. Does anyone want to come do this? Every single person, including every single bench player, voted yes, except for one person. And that was enough on its own. Okay, maybe he has something he needs to do. Nope, this person's a streamer. In fact, we didn't end up raiding the next day, and they streamed that entire day, and they were just playing WoW. But the reason that they said that they couldn't be there was out of principle. Like, we say we don't raid on Fridays, so we shouldn't raid on Friday. And then the GM just went with whatever they said. And then we didn't kill the boss. We killed it world 11th. We literally one-shot it, by the way. The next time we logged into raid, one shot on Sunday. And we lost like 4 world ranks, which at the time meant a lot to us. And that was maybe the most mad I've ever been. I'm so mad. If they couldn't have been there, I wouldn't have thought about it at all. The fact that they could have been there and just let all those people down... You know, I don't know.
I mean, I think that's like fine, right?
I think it depends on, like, if your guild is a guild that's like, yeah, our raid times are this,
dude.
That's one thing. If you're a guild that's like, we are a paragon of never overtiming. We will never set foot inside the raid outside of our raid hours, and then I catch you guys in the raid outside of your raid hours. Then I think it's reasonable to join a guild like that because you're thinking we're never going to do that, right? And then stick to your principles, but. I think most guilds are in a spot where it's like, yeah, these are our raid times, and if everybody wants to, we'll add an extra one.
Okay, exactly. Here's when overtiming sucks. When a person or officers are forcing you to do something that the majority of people don't want to do. When overtiming shouldn't even be considered over. Dude, if literally every person in the raid wants to log on and just game on another day, and they're all free to do it, why the fuck would you not do it? That's the whole point of it. You're playing the game for fun. Like,
if they all want to do it, right?
And we did. All of us wanted to do it.
Well, except for that person, one guy, right?
That person had no intent. At that point, when you know you're the only person saying no and you're doing it out of principle, it wasn't like we're it's like you don't fucking care about the happiness of the 19 other people. It's like an extremely selfish. That person logged on and streamed and just fucked around in town. Like, they weren't doing something. They didn't have a scheduled thing they were doing. There was no Mythic Plus. There was not a challenge mode sale. It was just... You were just online, and the rest of us were sad because of that. I was one of the most selfish things I've ever seen, and I feel bad about it to this day, obviously. I don't think there's any redeemable argument from what that person did. At least if you cared about the opinion of what those other 19 people thought of you.
What would you guys do with him afterwards?
I think he stayed in the guild for a while. Nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean...
All right.
Because you weren't in leadership at the time, right? You're just a rank and file.
I was a rank and file. I was like a rank and file guy all the way until we made Limit, actually. Like, I was actually probably would have been one of the worst people at leadership. And I think I was bad at leadership when I joined Limit until I had to get good at it, which is probably true of most people, I think. Like, you don't end up seeking that out or looking for it. It just kind of happens. Then you just have to figure it out. Same thing with raid leading. I was super ass at raid leading for a long time. You have to just do things and get good at them.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We were talking
kind of over.
Well, you mentioned season's kind of over. So I wanted to ask you, looking forward to next season. So we know the Mythic Plus dungeon pool, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
Yep.
And a lot of it isn't surprising. Oh, Dratnos wants to pull it up.
Yeah.
A few of them weren't surprising. So obviously we got the other 4, the War Within dungeons that we haven't done yet. We got the new dungeon that they're making for this patch specifically. And then we got 3 more, and all of them, actually 2 of them, super not weird that they're there because they're goblin themed, right? I think it's Mechagon Workshop, which is super goblin-y. And Motherlode, which is obviously super goblin-y, also one of the best dungeons ever. And then the last one was really interesting to me. Is it
Theater of Pain?
Yeah,
the Shadowlands expansion.
That is interesting because that doesn't even everything about this patch is thematic for the patch or our War Within dungeons, except for that, and I just don't know how they landed on that.
So I have a hot take. I actually quite liked most of the pulls and bosses in Theater of Pain. I think were pretty high quality. I think there's just too much of it. Like, man, that dungeon is gonna feel rough. It's like a 40-minute dungeon. Those always feel so bad compared to the like 30-minuters. So, and especially because that is the it's got soul letting Ruby, so you're gonna be in that place a lot if they don't nerf that trinket, because that's a good caster. It's a good trinket for pretty much every caster. But I like Theater of Pain conceptually. I wish it was shorter.
I really like all the War Within dungeons from doing them at the beginning of the season. Cinderbrew Meadery, I have very high opinion of. The Rookery is really fast. And some of those pulls after like the first boss, I think, will be pretty fun. And the Priory was great too. Those were, I think, Priory and Cinderbrew were my two favorite War Within dungeons, actually. So those two, and go ahead.
Cinderbrew was sweet. Like, it's so cool. I'm a little bit worried about doing some of those pulls on M+. They seem like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, killing the barrels.
Pulls. Yeah, I'm a
well,
little
just like mechanics
worried.
from the mobs. There's a lot going on. I think it'll
Like,
get
trimmed
the
down.
Bracken Hide treatment, because
Right,
you know
but
how like season 2 dungeons, they like generally don't get touched up much on beta, and I mean it's kind of expected, right? Because it's not going to come for season 1. So I think they'll probably trim it down. At least I hope so.
I remember Dawnbreaker, people were complaining a lot about going into the expansion, and then it got basically like nerfed to not suck. Same with Brackenhide. Like people basically like identified these dungeons as like, oh, these are gonna suck if they don't fix it. But I feel like Cinderbrew is like the overwhelming feedback that I suspect that Blizzard's hearing about Cinderbrew, because it's true, is like, this is such a cool dungeon. The theme is awesome. Like, these ability names are inspired.
Well, what you
I'm
say
a little
is
bit worried
also...
that means they might not get the like, it might release in a state where it's like actually pretty unfun because the flavor is so good that they don't get a lot of negative feedback about it.
No, but I do think a lot of people also mention what you said specifically about there just being too much. People always complain about the hallway with the volleys. You know, the volleys that slow, the one to the right side.
Yeah,
that's a pretty common complaint.
They talked about this in the interview too. They said how a lot of the stuff that ends up getting taken out for being too hard of combos is actually usually QA doing certain like dungeons or bosses and being like, there's too much going on here and this doesn't seem like it's very fun, and they've cited that as a reason that they have removed a lot of things. So it's also possible that whatever internal dungeon testing and whatever gets done on PTR takes it down a little bit, because they seem to imply that they value their QA's feedback like a lot when it comes to difficulty of what's going on. But I also think that's super interesting to just know, and this could affect the War Within dungeons. It could affect actually how they alter Motherlode and like Workshop. Are they going to change their philosophy in any way for how much is going on in a dungeon? Right? Like, that has been a clear point of I guess contention in this patch, especially with people just trying to go up to a 10. Like, there were people doing 8s and 9s and 10s in this patch that maybe that was the loudest complaint, was that like, this is just crazy. There's just like so much going on here. And I wonder if they beta too. Yeah, I wonder if the feedback they got from beta and from season 1 is, yes, we want to keep it this way. We want to make it harder, or maybe it's like, we should tone this down a bit, because that could, and this was actually a take I had that I want to hear you guys' opinion on, that like, it's really hard to tell how good a dungeon pool will be until you see the new version of what they've done. Like, they're bringing back Motherlode, and it's like, yes, Motherlode was great, but I feel like a dungeon that was amazing could be good or bad in a new season, depending on the changes they make to it, and you kind of don't know which one it's going to be until you see it. Like, it could, especially Motherlode, like, there's so much trash in there. There's so many things that are bordering on the line of like, they could change one thing about these mobs and like that place becomes hell, especially like the mechs at the beginning with mob count. So like, I don't know. I would be hesitant to say like anything's going to own or suck. Like, I think they could make Theater of Pain a lot less ass, right? Or long maybe, by just messing around with the dungeons a bit. Like reading, I guess reading this dungeon set's going to be good or bad is like, you're just totally making it up. Like, you just have no idea.
Yeah, I think I said this as well when we were having like Cataclysm dungeon, because it's just like it seems like much less important than like what dungeon is coming back. Is just how they revamp it for sure. Like they have done good things to bad dungeons, bad things to good dungeons, bad things to bad dungeons. All of these combinations of things have happened. So I think the thing that I'm rooting for is just that they pick dungeons that have cool layouts with a lot of options, because they do try and stick to the fantasy of the bosses at least and stuff as well, right? And like,
Yeah.
you know, there's some bosses like the worm boss in Shadow and Burial Grounds, like there was no saving that thing.
I think Bear definitely could have been saving for that, but
Okay, maybe,
there's
yeah.
definitely not a lot of effort put into it. Yeah, that's been my take for the longest time too. Whenever people ask me, I mean, it's a really common question in my stream, right? People are always asking me like, "Oh, hey, Dorky, what's your favorite dungeons across all seasons?" Or like, "What would you like to see?" Or "What do you not like?" And I've always just said the exact same. It doesn't really matter what they bring back. It could be a complete stinker, or it could be completely the best dungeon, or like completely reworked to be the best dungeon ever. It just entirely depends on what they decide to do. But yeah, I agree with like it feels like the way they've been designing these dungeons, I've actually been enjoying it, you know, like just like me personally, but that's because like I'm playing in an organized group, right? When I'm playing with my push groups doing these high keys, like it's pretty fun. But when I'm pugging these keys, or when I'm like just like seeing what people have to go through in these dungeons, it just seems not it. Like it's definitely too much.
That seems to be the overwhelming feedback.
Yeah, we get these in our comments whenever we talk about, whenever any of us mention having fun in a key, it's like the comments are immediately like, well, that's because you have a group. It's like, yeah, that
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously.
Our disparity between like playing with friends and playing in the pug situation though, like that has clearly gotten worse than it, you know, used to be. Like, because I think our advice has always been like, play with your friends, right? Like that's always going to be more fun.
Dude, would
But
you guys play this game without your friends?
No.
That's how I feel too. Like that's maybe the biggest disconnect. Is I think this is gonna sound really bad maybe to some people, but I think the idea of playing
Like,
WoW alone to me is psycho. Like that sounds like such an infinitely worse game for all the reasons that I love it. I know there's plenty of reasons that you guys look, collectors, all that stuff. They're like, you play it solo and this game's awesome. But like I wanted to ask you guys that because I don't know if any of us would even play this game like that at all. Like we would not be WoW players. We would not have this podcast if we were not playing with our friends.
I mean, I did play a large part of Legion solo, and I would say a large part of BFA solo too. But I met people along the way eventually, and I mean, like, I think the way I play World of Warcraft, I would definitely be more of a tourist. Like, I would come back for a season or an expansion and just have fun for a bit, but I would not be playing long term if it wasn't for my friends.
Yeah. I also realized that there needs to be a point of content, or there needs to be content made for Mythic Plusers. It's content that Dratnos and I do actually, but for raids. So before raids come out, you make a guess as to how good these bosses are going to be. You're going to rate them based on their design. So like you guys going from PTR, I guess, you would just rate these dungeons for how good you think they'll be. And then at the beginning of the season, you rate them for what they actually are. And then at the end of the season, I wish you would do it again, and I would love to see how that changes. Like, because I think that changes so much. Could be based on doing, like, actually, okay, so Dorky, like right now, what is your opinion of the season 1 dungeon pool?
I mean,
now that you're done with the season, right?
So I would say I still feel the same in the sense that like there's still too much going on. There's like too much damage and all that. But I did end up having more fun than I expected. Like personally, I had more fun with this season. This was actually one of the more fun seasons. Maybe it's just because I'm playing DPS. Like I don't know. I mean, there could be many different factors for why exactly I'm having more fun.
I mean, it's not even just that. There's definitely like there's a lot of players in my guild that are just like slamming keys, and that never happens. So I assume there has to be some replayability to the season. So you'd say that your opinion of the dungeons has changed positively over time. That seems to happen a lot, I think. I think like in general, I would say the most likely trend for Mythic Plus, I think, and some of this could be because they actually changed the dungeons. It seems to be much more negative at the beginning or preseason and ends the season at much more positive, like basically every season. To me, from an outsider listening, it seems like that is somewhat consistent.
Well, from what I've been seeing, though, it definitely seems like people are still down about it. You know how we were talking about a couple of episodes people saying this season sucks, one of the worst dungeon pools ever.
Yeah.
That seems to still be the case for a lot of the complainers.
I mean, you'd hear it from your Twitch chat, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's like not just
Yeah.
my Twitch chat, but like also just like wherever M Plus is being discussed, whether it's like Reddit or YouTube comments, sometimes like even on videos.
I mean, Blizzard also does make M Plus better during a season, right? Like,
Yeah, 100%.
if you think about the things that change about M Plus each season, like Xalatat's bargain affixes got a lot better, Xalatat's guile got a lot better, Challenger's peril got arguably, we could argue about, but it's definitely didn't get worse. But the 90 seconds is like, clearly it's at least a little bit better, probably. The reward situation, which I think was a huge problem about M Plus, they like shifted down a key level where you get
that was huge.
Your crest, right? So like, whether you think however good you think M Plus was, it's, I think, almost impossible to argue that it didn't get better over the course of the season, right? So like, I think it's somewhat some of the sentiment getting more positive over time can probably be attributed to the fact that Blizzard is actually just making M Plus better over time as well.
I also think you just do the dungeons more and get used to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. A lot of it is also just people understanding what to do, and it just like alleviates some of the pain points. There's like sort of a meta going on whenever you're pugging keys. You kind of know what pulls to expect and what each boss or mob does, like what the general strategy is.
Yeah, I still hear a lot of like overwhelming negativity about the pug situation this season. But I don't think that the dungeon pool is like the culprit.
Do you think Blizzard likes
Oh no,
that?
yeah, 100% not just.
Do you think Blizzard likes that? It's kind
Likes
of a
what?
weird question. I'm kind of asking, like, do you think Blizzard likes that it is a struggle to play solo?
I think so, because I was gonna say this when we were talking about like my experience playing as a group. I'm pretty sure Blizzard has that friction to kind of nudge players into playing in a group, or
Yeah,
like maybe being in comms, like maybe not necessarily playing in a group, but like you could be pugging in comms. The problem is like players are super resilient to that. The idea of having to hop on a Discord call with a bunch of random people, and then like somebody doesn't even speak English, and you just have people who have like open mics, and
It could ruin
maybe
your
there's, like,
day
a
if
kid
someone was
crying in
really
the
rude to you,
background.
right?
Yeah, or like people are just
Social
being
anxiety.
weird, or and it's also just like awkward. There's a lot to it. I mean, like I've been here, right? Like I've been in that scene for a good part of Legion and BFA, and I fully understand why people are like super against it. In fact, like anytime I join a pug group, even if like they have absolutely no idea who I am, if they ever link a Discord link, I'm just like, I don't really want to join.
Yeah, I know that
I'm
feeling.
like, yeah,
I don't know these people. Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot because like they do that in raid for sure. Like every time we've asked the Mythic Lockout question, like why is Mythic Lockout like so unpuggable? And they're like, this content shouldn't be pugged, and it's going to be way better experience for everyone if you're doing this in a group in comms. And that's right. That's true. They make content that incentivizes that. So you can make the argument in raid that they actually want you to do that. And then in Mythic Plus, I've never really thought of it, but there is some things that make sense. Like I guess the like group finder issue we've kind of labeled as like the biggest problem in Mythic Plus is just the whole like getting into groups thing is by far like the biggest issue. As a solo player, that certainly sucks more than if you have like an organized team. But also like, what is the nostalgia people have for Classic? Like I think a lot of it is the community that you felt back then, like how you interacted with other people more. I think Blizzard desperately wants to bring that to the game as much as possible and always has. And I think they do design some of their content to be, I wonder if that's like why they made Mythic Plus harder. They're like, you guys are, why they've introduced in-game voice. In-game voice is actually pretty good. No one uses it. But like if you think about why they added it, even though people use Discord, why did you go? They wanted to remove a step of inconvenience of having to join a Discord server, probably, right? You just click a button instead. Like they probably want to, if at all they can, because why would they do this? We just talked about this, right? How many of us would still be playing this game if you weren't playing with your friends? We all started as solo players, but at a certain point it becomes about more than that, and you play for other people, or you like enjoying the content a lot better with other people. They probably want to get as many people on that shit as possible because it's good. So
yeah, but it can't be like, this can't be the right amount of friction for like, I feel like it's too like,
yeah,
if there was a time in the game's past where it was still true that the best, like 2 expansions ago, my most common piece of advice for people was play with a group, don't pug, right? And since then, pugging has gotten worse in terms of how fun it is. And like, I think it's at this point of severe diminishing returns where like it's bad enough that you already wouldn't be pugging if you didn't want to, if you didn't, like the kinds of people that are pushed into a group by making pugging twice as bad. It's like a very small fraction of people that, will maybe get pushed over the line there. I think most of the people already were either there or they're just never going to not pug because they're just like, yeah, I play this game by myself. I don't want to do all this organizing. I don't want to join a Discord, which I play like that sometimes as well, right? Like sometimes I am trying to play games solo. That's a thing too, but like, I don't know. I think Blizzard could make pugging like twice or 3 times as fun as it is right now, and it wouldn't. I don't think it would doom organized groups.
Yeah, you're probably right.
in any stretch. That is, I think, the biggest argument against like a solo queue is like maybe a solo queue would add enough.
Oh yeah,
it would be like putting TikTok or whatever on our phones where we just don't go outside anymore.
Yeah, it would solve the Well, it would go a lot of ways to solve the biggest problem, which is I can't find a group depending on what class you play. But it would also make it a lot more solo, which would also think like what would they do if they couldn't get people to get in comms? They would probably want to add more ways in game to coordinate things, which like was the ping system. I think that was like a big idea there. They just need to probably do more in that aspect. If the social anxiety is something that is big with a lot of WoW players and they don't want to do that, they have to like triple down on the in-game UI and communication stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's like a social anxiety thing because when you mentioned the point of like, oh, they want the players to be grouped like back then, I think it's very different because the grouping back then was like, all right, you just like get in party and you might be like typing to each other and stuff, and then like that's the extent, right? And it's a much more chill environment. Whereas when you're doing M+, it's like, all right, go, and it's more about calling kicks and stops and that type of comms, which people don't really want to have to do. People would much rather just like show up with a bunch of other players and just like play the game, do your part.
Gamers are. Do you guys like texting or calling people?
Oh, texting for sure.
Yeah, same. And that's even more like hyper focused on like people who are like 20 and under. Like calling people is fucking insane. Like for us, leaving a voicemail is insane. Leaving a voicemail for us is like calling someone for them, right?
Oh God.
So you're kind of seeing that like people lend themselves more towards text communication. So maybe Blizzard should do more in that area. Like, hey, it turns out people at all, if they can help it, actually don't want to be in voice with people. That's just like a human thing, clearly. So like make the non-vocal communication as good as possible.
It would actually work if M+ wasn't speedrunning. Like if there was no timer, how like people always like, oh, I wish dungeons were more methodical and strategical. There would definitely be a much less emphasis on requiring comms because you just like slowly just like plan stuff out and just like type it in chat for what you're gonna do each pull and every boss. But obviously, that's not the type of gameplay I would prefer.
Not in time. Maybe that's why there's that aversion to timed gameplay in general. Like
I wish that they
100%.
would give that as an option though. Like it felt like that was something that they were kind of indicating they wanted to do. Where it's like, hey, we're squishing down the timed difficulty and increasing the difficulty of the untimed stuff. But that seems like it kind of has fallen apart. Like M0s are not a like I wish there was a way that you could get good gear from untimed but harder dungeon content that you just did.
Yeah, hard
that
mode.
was like Dawn of the Infinite hard mode or whatever when that was available, where it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good gear that you kind of want to get. And I wish that was like a complete. You could do that or M+, and both could get you hero track and myth track from Vault or whatever. That'd be sick. Even though I like the timed content, I do think the untimed stuff is that's a very valid way to want to play, and it is definitely much more conducive to like non-voice comms.
Yeah,
I mean, just having options is good.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever used in-game WoW voice comms?
Yeah.
Yes.
Once.
One time.
I wonder.
When Discord went down.
Yeah, I used it once as well.
Exactly.
I wonder what the usage rate of that is. If that it
Gotta
can't
be abysmal.
It can't be what they hoped when they updated it. But yeah, it's. I understand why you tried.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys remember? Was it last week when Fronk gave us the exact same Patreon question?
That would be crazy if he did that again.
Wait, did he? Let me see.
No, he didn't.
You
want to do the Patreon question?
We could. How long have we been speaking?
I don't know. One thing with we changed our recording system setup from before.
I think it's been an hour.
Used to be OBS, so I could just see the little thing, but now I can't. So, an hour and a bit-ish. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do our Patreon question.
Sweet.
About time for that. This one comes from Sharpie that says, how would you describe raid progging to people who have no idea what World of Warcraft is? Part of my decision of working where I currently work is being able to stay in a 3-day cutting edge guild. When I introduced myself to my coworkers a year ago, I had to describe not only WoW raiding, but Mythic raiding too. That's a cool question.
It's
mental illness.
Mental illness. It is interesting because there's so many aspects of this. I think it's like for a lot of us, we have had to try to explain our jobs to like our family members.
Oh yeah, dude,
and I
feel Uber driver as well.
Yeah, that's tough. You have to like, the Uber driver. Oh wait, you do that? Oh cool. How does that work? And you've had to like explain what we do for a living, right? And there's like a streaming element of it, but it's also like playing the game. For me, it's raiding. It's like I've had to do similar stuff. Man, at a job, it's weird too because it totally makes sense for you to take time off work for a hobby, right? But also, I feel like a lot of us, if you had a job, or if I used to have a job, or you have a job now, you would lie about why you're taking time off because you feel like they might judge you or be mad at you if you say you're taking time off for the new release of a video game or for a new WoW season or something like that. Do you think that's true? I think people like turbo lie about that.
Yeah, and then it's tough because like then you're kind of trapped in the lie, right?
Yeah, exactly. I did this. Yeah.
What do you guys say if people ask you like what you do for a living?
What do I say?
Yeah.
I just tell them I play video games. And then if they inquire further, I just like kind of describe what I'm doing. But like a lot of people actually don't care past that. So you just leave it at that and that's cool. What do you guys do?
Yeah. Dude, my answer for this, it sometimes varies. Like sometimes I just don't really have the energy to like because sometimes I find that depending on how you answer that, like I can tell if I'm getting in an Uber and I like haven't slept for 20 hours and it's somebody who's talkative and who wants to talk to me about things.
You just lie?
I don't really want to talk. I'll just rip a lie. Yeah, I'll do it.
You'll like tell me you work in construction or some shit?
Yeah, I'll just be like, no man, I work at computers.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's true. That's not a lie.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, that's what I do, sort of.
If you were just like, yeah, I work construction, then you could get in trouble, though, because then they're like, oh, dude, I used to as well. What do you do? And then you're like, oh, fucking goddamn it.
Yeah, I carry the bricks, man.
I only carry the
brick dealer.
Yeah.
So how do I tell my civilian boss about WoW raids? Well, I mean, if they care, it would just be like telling someone that you trust and think is cool about a hobby that you have. And if they actually care, then just describe it for what it is. It's like 20 people working at a group project, but it's like but it's all for fun and as a hobby. So it's like you're working together, it's like maybe playing sports. It's kind of similar to like if you play on like an ultimate frisbee team or like a soccer team or something. You're all working together to win the game. That's the same concept in WoW rating, right? So you're just not playing against other people. You're playing against AI, I guess. But right, is there any other way to relate it to people?
I mean, it's like any other game, right? It's like if you're playing Zelda, like except you're with a bunch of other players and you're just trying to figure out how to beat a really hard boss.
It depends on if you're trying to like explain the appeal of it, because I do think there is something special about rating, right? Like if you're having a conversation with somebody where it's like you're trying to explain to them why you love rating so much, and it's something that is a big part of your day, and you know it's like your favorite hobby or whatever, like then you do need to actually think about how to convey that. And I think you're right, Max. It's like you cooperative, you know, it's like it's problem solving. There's an element of like getting 20 people to all operate as one, and you know, sort of turn into like an orchestra rather than a bunch of musicians or whatever.
Yeah, but you'd have to gauge how many people even care about that, because like they're probably just trying to understand. Like, I'm assuming this is a lunch talk and you're just trying to talk about what you do for fun. Very normal shit, right? And then you're just like, I feel like you would just say I game to most people. And I feel like they'll probably get the idea and they may not want the whole like, but I game, but it's about rating and you don't understand. Because I feel like conveying someone who's never done WoW rating, it really is like, and if you really love it, it's like, it is kind of like, there's really nothing like it at all. I would say playing sports is probably like playing a routine sport with the same people not like pickup games. Like you have a team of people that you've known and liked for a long time, and you try to achieve things together. That's the closest feeling that I think you could convey to someone normally. But it's more than that. And also the idea of defeating a boss. If someone hasn't played a video game, like defeating a boss, but also defeating a boss that's like insanely hard and requires the coordination of so many people, like that is so unique to this.
Yeah, I've had friends that I've explained this to. It's like who play other games, and sometimes there's something similar there. Like, you know, if you have a friend who's ever played like Elden Ring, for instance, I think the progression rating experience can be you can very easily explain the appeal to them, because it's a very similar sort of vibe of like, you try, fail, try, get better, fail. Eventually you kill it and it's like, oh my god, this is so poggers.
Now imagine you went through that with all of your friends, right? And like that's kind of what it is. I actually had this exact interaction the other day. I like met someone at the rink, and I like introduced him to another guy to do a skate, and he was like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I play games. And then he's like, oh, I'm an actor or whatever. Like, yeah, I play a ton of games too, but like and then he just said like, I play Call of Duty. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, okay, super normie gamer, probably can't relate to this person, gonna keep it a buck, gonna like keep it real short. And then he's like, oh, but I got into like Elden Ring recently, and then I got a PC and I downloaded Skyrim, and I'm like, yes, this person will be able to totally understand how all this shit works. And then I like explained it more. But like, if someone ever hits you with the like, I play Madden and Call of Duty, just like leave it, just give them the most simple explanation ever, because like they don't. This might sound bad, but like they game at a very basic level. Like they don't know the good shit.
Yeah,
they don't know the good shit.
It's true.
You gotta tailor your answer depending on like whether you're just trying to like explain why you're gonna be gone, you know, for a few weeks every half year or something, versus like if the person like genuinely is trying to understand, you know, why you like the things that you like, in which case you got a little bit more runway to explain it to them.
We used to have a few wagies.
Wagies.
You do go do yours first, Dorky.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's like when a girl asks you like, oh, do you go to gym? And it's like, well, yeah, you don't want to like, you know, go into depth saying like, oh yeah, like here's my macros and this is my split. It's more like, oh yeah, you know, like I go occasionally. You just try to like explain like, oh, you know, I just like to go do some cardio and like lift some weights, pick stuff up, and put it down.
You gotta just say like, no, it's just all genetics. It's all genetics, because that's the right answer.
I'm like pretty casual
right?
with
like,
it.
Yeah.
Dude, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. That's sweet.
No, okay, you said you had some wagies. Wagies?
Oh yeah, like we had wagies in Liquid that, well, very few now, but like back in the day. And like to get off for the race world first, like you used to have to take off Heroic Week and then 2 weeks of Mythic. That's taking off 3 weeks in America. If you're listening to this in Europe, that is not normal. You cannot just fucking do that. You have to like, something has to come up. And I would basically, why I brought this up is I would wonder what the amalgamation of lies would have been if we could just look at them for the lies that they told their bosses for why they were doing this. Because I imagine I'm going to compete in a video game tournament for 3 weeks. You just don't have a job after that, I think, in a lot of those jobs. What Tags used to do, and he worked in IT, is this: he would just quit his job every tier and just join a new one and get a better job. And that just worked out for like years. And that's just the way he did it.
God, that goes so hard.
You just get a new job.
Yeah.
He ended up joining some startup, quit after 6 months, do it again. I have a new title now. Like, dude, crazy. I don't know how Padra did it. Padra,
you get four raid tiers for free, right? You've got 4 grandparents every time you join a new job. So that's
you're rotating grandparents dying?
Yeah, you go on the rotation.
You need 3 weeks for a grandparent dying? That's like, I guess for the race that's extreme. I think for a lot of people, taking like 1 week off work is like perfect for doing that.
All right. I think that's about it for our PoddyC this week.
What in the comments? What is the best lie you have told your job or anyone about why you were playing too much World of Warcraft? That would be great.
Ooh. Also in the comments, if you have any topic ideas for next week, hit us up.
Yeah, because it's getting rough out here. And what we might do is, it really honestly, a smart podcast probably just like rotates through really good guests, because you can talk about a lot of the same thing but get a new perspective on it, and it's great. We'll probably end up doing that. But if there's anything specifically you guys would love to hear us talk about, that would help us and you out a lot.
Dude, I just almost died in hardcore. Oh my god.
Really? What happened?
Dude, imagine that happened.
I was fighting
live on
level 8. Holy fuck! It was
No,
it
not
kept
level
parrying me, and I kept missing.
Oh.
I was
That
shaky
would've
for a second.
sucked.
Oh my god!
Oh.
All right.
All right. Well, see you next week.
Poddy farewell.
Poddy
Unless you're a patron.
Adios.
See you in
Yep,
2 seconds.
Poddy bonus episode. Bonus episode patrons.
Yep.
Make sure if you're not subscribed to Patreon, now's the time. It's Black Friday. We're not doing a discount, but a lot of other people are. So you got some more money in the bank. Use it for
Ooh,
our,
and
our Patreon.
we may be having some Poddy.
Yeah, get your wallet ready.
Some Poddy clothing coming up in the future potentially.
Yeah.
You didn't hear it from me though.
Where'd you hear it from then?
I don't know. They just heard it on the street or something. The streets are talking about it.
Oh shit!
Many are saying.
Yeah, many
Big
are
if
saying.
true.
All right, goodbye.
Goodbye.